General Hospital Spoilers reveal that Cullum had spent months convincing himself that he could stay calm under pressure, that the walls closing in around the WSB's most corrupted corridors would never touch him. But Sonny Corinthos had become the crack he could no longer seal. The pressure point that finally exposed the limits of his control. What began as irritation slowly mutated into panic as Sonny maneuvered his way closer to the truth too perceptive, too connected, too relentless to ignore. Sidwell sensed Cullum's unraveling and used it to his advantage, whispering strategies, dripping with venom. Feeding Cullum a narrative where Sonny's very existence threatened the empire they had built in shadows. And though Cullum once prided himself on rational decision-making, he now found himself slipping deeper into Sidwell's dark calculus, a place where moral boundaries no longer existed, and violence became the simplest form of problem-solving. The storm of anxiety brewing inside him became unbearable each time Sonny defied their expectations. Each time he survived a blow meant to break him. When Marco warned that Sonny was becoming a liability they could no longer afford to tolerate, Cullum resisted briefly before the weight of everything finally crushed the last remnants of hesitation. That was the moment something inside him snapped, and he understood that Sidwell's plan was no longer an option. It was the only path left. And so he embraced the darkest adjustment yet. The strategic shift that would change everything Sonny Corinthos had to be eliminated. This time, Cullum wanted no mistakes, no signs of struggle, no explosive chaos that could backfire and expose the operation. Physical attacks had failed in the past. Bullets had missed. Enemies had betrayed them. Sonny had walked through fire and returned every time. So Sidwell proposed something far more elegant. A slow and silent erasure, the kind of poison that mimicked medical catastrophe. The kind of biochemical manipulation only WSB defectors could craft. Cullum hated himself for agreeing, because despite everything, he respected the balance of power in Port Charles and understood the devastation that would unfold if Sonny fell. But the fear of exposure, of Sidwell turning on him, of the entire project collapsing, overpowered every rational argument. The new calculation was simple. Sonny living equaled doom, Sonny dying equaled survival. And with that conclusion, Cullum crossed the line he could never uncross. Meanwhile, unaware of the tightening net around him, Sonny continued pushing for answers. Sensing danger but not yet grasping its scale. His intuition whispered that someone was hunting him again, someone smarter than the usual street-level threats. Someone with institutional reach and the patience to let death arrive quietly instead of through brute force. Sonny dismissed the dizziness he felt that morning, the metallic taste that rose unexpectedly in his throat, the tremor that traveled down his arm, all warning signs he should have listened to. He chalked them up to stress, to exhaustion, to the relentless weight of protecting his family. But Cullum was already pulling strings behind the scenes, manipulating access points, compromising supply lines, exploiting every vulnerability he could locate. The plan was monstrous in its precision. Sonny would be poisoned through an indirect channel, a method designed to bypass security suspicion and medical intervention. And when the symptoms began, they would mimic a natural crisis, something tragic but explainable, something that would keep attention away from Sidwell and the WSB's darkest secrets. For the first time in years, even Jason found Sonny harder to reach, as if fate itself were conspiring to isolate him at the very moment he needed protection most. And as Sonny's body reacted, a gradual, insidious assault on his strength, Cullum watched from a distance, expecting relief but feeling only dread. He had wanted certainty, closure, and calm, but instead he felt the ground beneath him weakening, as though attacking Sonny had awakened a force far more dangerous than the man himself. The Corinthos family sensed something was wrong, the shift in Sonny's energy, the shadows under his eyes, the rare moments where he seemed unfocused and vulnerable. And as they drew closer, determined to uncover the truth, Cullum felt the walls tightening again. The very suffocation he had tried to escape, now returning with twice the ferocity. He realized too late that killing Sonny was not an ending, it was an ignition. If Sonny survived, he would come for Cullum with a vengeance that no calculation could contain. If Sonny died, the backlash from Jason, Michael, Sam, Dante, and the entire Corinthos network would be apocalyptic. And yet the poison was already in motion, the plan already underway, the catastrophe already unfolding. Whether Sonny lived or died, Cullum had crossed into a darkness even Sidwell could not fully control. And at Thamhoa, the absolute disaster he feared most was no longer just a possibility. It had already begun. If Sonny survives long enough to rise from the edge of death, the balance of power in Port Charles will shift violently, because his recovery will mark the birth of a new war, one in which Ross Cullum becomes the next name Sonny intends to. Erase? As Sonny slowly pieces together fragmented memories, moments where everything felt wrong, lightheadedness, the metallic taste in his mouth, the sudden collapses that didn't match any known diagnosis, Jason will be the first to recognize the pattern. Poison. Not a street-level toxin, not something sloppy or improvised, but something engineered, targeted, crafted by someone with access to intelligence resources. Their investigation will move like a storm-gathering force, and though suspicion will initially fall on Sidwell, and later on Marco, the deeper Jason digs, the clearer it becomes that none of Sonny's usual enemies have the sophistication or the institutional access required to orchestrate something this lethal. Yet a deadly twist changes the momentum completely. Marco turns up dead. Marco's death does more than widen the mystery, it detonates it. The brutality of it, the precision, the unmistakable message embedded within it, tells Sonny and Jason everything they need to know. Marco wasn't the mastermind. He was a pawn, a disposable tool whose usefulness had expired the moment he tried to distance himself from Sidwell's twisted ambition. And in that instant, the path forward becomes clear. Marco didn't just die, he was executed as part of a cleanup operation. Cullum is erasing evidence, severing ties, and rewriting the narrative before anyone can catch up. His decision to kill Marco marks the beginning of a new recalibration, a dark and methodical shift that exposes the type of man he truly is. If poisoning Sonny was a step into darkness, Marco's elimination is a full plunge. For Sonny, Marco's death is both confirmation and escalation. Someone with immense power, ruthless discipline, and total emotional detachment is reshaping the battlefield. And as the truth inches closer, the danger around the Corinthos family heightens. Sonny's loved ones begin to feel the shift, the increased security, the tension in his voice, the way his eyes harden when he speaks of the WSB. They know this version of Sonny, the one who has been pushed to the edge, the one who has chosen vengeance as the only language left to speak. Jason, ever the strategist, warns him to stay patient, to gather intelligence first, but even Jason can sense the urgency. Cullum is not like Cyrus or the countless mob upstarts who thought they could challenge Sonny. Cullum represents something far more dangerous, a convergence of intelligence, authority, criminal ambition, and the cold logic of someone who sees human beings as operational variables. As Sonny gains strength, the emotional weight of what almost happened begins transforming into rage. The poisoning wasn't just an attack on him, it was an attack on the family. He has sacrificed everything to protect. Dante, Michael, Carly, Christina, they all become part of a larger emotional equation that fuels Sonny's determination. And as Jason uncovers documents, intercepted communications, and odd behavioral patterns linking Cullum directly to Sidwell's covert operations, the picture sharpens into horrifying clarity. Ross Cullum wasn't simply following Sidwell's orders. He was expanding them, transforming them, turning them into something far more dangerous than Sidwell ever intended. Cullum, meanwhile, senses the tremors of exposure and begins making even more drastic adjustments. Marco's death was only the beginning. Files disappear. Evidence is rewritten. Surveillance is corrupted. Cullum enters a phase of strategic paranoia, aware that Sonny's survival threatens the entire framework he and Sidwell built. And though Sidwell initially encourages aggressive action, even he begins to fear how far Cullum is willing to go. What began as a project has become an obsession. Cullum is no longer satisfied with eliminating Sonny. He wants to eliminate the environment that allows someone like Sonny to exist. He wants control, absolute, unchallenged, irreversible control. Yet the more he tries to tighten his grip, the more the cracks widen. The city begins whispering. Rumors spread about a new invisible threat, someone working within institutional shadows rather than criminal backrooms. Police reports show inconsistencies. WSB agents begin acting strangely, some frightened, some suspicious, some suddenly disappearing. And through all of this, Sonny moves with increasing precision. His enemies have always underestimated his intelligence, but Jason knows better. Sonny's greatest strength has never been violence. It has been strategy, patience, and the ability to understand human weakness. And Cullum, for all his cold brilliance, underestimates the depth of Sonny's resilience. Soon, Sonny uncovers the truth. Marco's death was ordered by Cullum, not Sidwell. And that revelation changes everything. Sidwell becomes a distraction, a decoy, a temporary obstacle. Cullum becomes the mission. And once Sonny designates someone as a mission, there is no turning back. What follows is the quiet gathering of power, Jason aligning allies, Dante monitoring intelligence channels, Spinelli scraping through corrupted WSB databases, Brick decoding encrypted communications. The Corinthos network becomes a silent machine assembling truth from chaos. And the more they uncover, the darker the path appears. Cullum has crossed lines even seasoned operatives fear. He has manipulated WSB systems, taken lives, erased identities, and now with Sonny still alive, he is attempting to orchestrate one final adjustment, total elimination of any threat that could expose him. Sonny knows the collision is inevitable. Cullum knows it too. Two men, driven by survival power and unbreakable will, one rooted in loyalty, the other in ambition warped into madness. Port Charles has seen its share of rivalries, but nothing like the storm now taking shape. Sonny doesn't just want revenge, he wants to dismantle the force that nearly destroyed him. And Cullum doesn't just want Sonny dead, he wants Sonny forgotten. The fuse has already been lit. The confrontation is not a question of if, but when. And when it comes, Port Charles will never be the same. The revelation of Cullum's true identity shatters the fragile logic holding Sonny's world together. Because the moment he uncovers that, Ross Cullum is not just a corrupt WSB official, but Brenda Barrett's long-lost brother, everything Sonny thought he understood about the attack, the poisoning. And the escalating pattern of violence detonates into a new terrifying shape. What had seemed like a cold, calculated operation suddenly acquires something far more dangerous emotion. Vengeance. A personal vendetta rooted in wounds Sonny never even knew existed. Brenda had always been a storm in his life, a whirlwind of beauty, chaos, and heartbreak, but never once had she mentioned a brother hidden in the shadows. A sibling trapped in the kind of trauma that metastasizes into obsession. When Jason pieces together the archival records, the falsified birth certificates, and the buried WSB files that reveal Ross Cullum once carried the surname Barrett, Sonny feels a violent rush of heat tear through him, as if every cell in his body remembers the pain of losing Brenda, the guilt he carried, the helplessness that nearly destroyed him. And now to discover that Cullum had been watching from the fringes of her life, interpreting her suffering through his own twisted lens, blaming Sonny for her heartbreak, her disappearance, her spiraling instability. It awakens a fury inside Sonny that is unlike anything he has felt since the darkest moments of his past. This isn't just an assassination attempt anymore. It isn't just a criminal feud. It's a war fueled by grief, delusion, and the resurrection of ghosts Sonny has spent years trying to bury. Cullum's motives crystallize with terrifying clarity. His adjustments, his recalibrations of his escalating violence, they aren't the actions of a strategic mastermind protecting a secret project. They are the movements of a man consumed by a singular purpose: punish the man he believes destroyed his sister. Cullum had watched Brenda return to Port Charles over and over, witnessed her unraveling relationships, her repeated emotional collisions with Sonny, and interpreted every tear, every disappearance, every heartbreak as Sonny's doing. In Cullum's mind, Brenda wasn't broken by her circumstances, she was broken by Sonny Corinthos. And once she was gone, once her absence became a wound, Cullum couldn't close. His grief mutated into something monstrous, pushing him into the WSB, shaping him into a weapon sharpened by paranoia and rage. His attack on Sonny wasn't professional, it wasn't calculated, it was personal, down to the marrow of his bones. And when Sonny realizes this, when Jason confirms the last missing piece, Sonny's initial shock collapses into a volcanic eruption of anger so deep it threatens to consume him. Every memory of Brenda floods back the nights he held her while she cried the promises he couldn't keep. The enemies who nearly took her away, the years he spent believing he could have saved her if only he had acted sooner. And now, standing in the aftermath of Cullum's betrayal, Sonny recognizes the cruel symmetry of it all. Cullum's hatred is built on the same foundation that nearly ruined Sonny guilt. But where Sonny learned to survive his regret, Cullum allowed his regret to define him. And now driven by a distorted sense of loyalty toward a sister who never wanted vengeance, Cullum has declared war on a man Brenda once loved more fiercely than anyone. The emotional weight of that contradiction hits Sonny like a blow. Brenda would have never wanted this. She would have never wanted her brother to become a killer. She would have never wanted Sonny to be poisoned in her name. That knowledge sharpens Sonny's fury into something cold and precise. This isn't just about justice anymore, it's about stopping Cullum before his grief destroys even more lives. Meanwhile, Cullum spirals deeper into the fantasy that every move he makes honors Brenda's memory. He justifies Marco's execution as removing a distraction from his mission. He begins rewriting his operational files to match the narrative inside his mind. He convinces himself that Sidwell's weakness is a liability he will eventually need to eliminate. And every time he imagines Sonny's face, every time he whispers Brenda's name in the dark, Cullum feels himself sinking further into the conviction that killing Sonny is not just necessary, it is righteous. The poison was only the beginning. The failed attack only strengthened his resolve. He is preparing something bigger now, something final, something he believes will avenge every tear Brenda shed. But Sonny is no longer confused, no longer stumbling through shadows. The truth has set something alive inside him, something fierce and unstoppable. Jason sees it in the tightness of Sonny's jaw. The way he speaks Brenda's name, softer than a whisper, but with pain vibrating through every syllable. Dante sees it in Sonny's eyes that have shifted from fear to purpose. The Corinthos family feels the storm building around him, and they know the next move will define everything. Sonny will not allow Brenda's memory to be twisted into a weapon. He will not allow Cullum to weaponize grief. And above all, he will not let someone use Brenda's name as an excuse to destroy his family. Cullum believes he is honoring his sister. Sonny now understands he must save Brenda's memory from the man claiming to avenge her. And so, the battlefield changes once again, not because of power or money or criminal influence, but because two men bound by the same woman now stand on opposite sides of a war she never would have wanted. The rivalry between Sonny and Cullum, once rooted in misdirection and conspiracy, has evolved into something far more volatile, a collision of grief, guilt, and revenge that will shake Port Charles to its core. And when it finally explodes, the ghost of the past will rise with it.